What's going down, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Commander ad Populum. Together we are Commander, for the people, by the people, for the people. My name is Ryan. This is episode 43. Welcome back. If you're a returning listener, welcome. If you're a brand new listener, it's great to have you. As we always do, we kick it off with a couple short business matters. First, big thank you to official sponsors of the show, FusionGamingOnline.com. They are there for all of your gaming needs. And of course, big thank you to all of the Patreon supporters, patreon.com/cadpopcast. Couldn't do it without all of the generous support, both from Fusion and the patrons. And of course, if you have the means and the desire to become a supporter of the show, you can head on over. There's great benefits, deals on altered art cards, access to the CAD Popcast Discord. We do have a little bit of a family. And for the Discord users, I hope that you've checked out a couple of the new channels. It's nothing major there, but there is just a little bit of a breakdown to better categorize all the stuff that we're talking about. And of course, for you guys to make suggestions for the show. So if you don't hop on very often, now's a chance to do that and just give me your opinion on a couple of the new channels we got going on there. We're going to continue down the Odyssey block in the set retrospective today. We're going to do Torment, which is a pretty cool set, unlike very many or any, I think, other sets in Magic history. But before we do that, we've got a quick community section where I'm going to talk about some more organization of my own collection and, of course, what I think organizing brings to your Magic collection. And some quick tips on how to add value to your collection, because it's no secret the game's expensive, it's only getting more expensive, and I've got a couple suggestions as to what I think new players should prioritize when they're trying to build their collection or build multiple decks. So we're going to get to that just after this. So lately on Twitter, I've seen, and Facebook, I'm on a few Facebook groups, I've seen a bunch of posters and people just saying like, hey, the format was better before WotC had their fingers in it, or Commander was about discovering old cards and how to use them. Commander's about digging through boxes and binders and finding hidden gems to put in your deck that worked with this obscure or bad or very narrow Commander. And now the format is essentially degrading into good stuff.decks or combo decks, because we've gotten things like, the Chulanes and the Tatiovas of the world. Those are the Uro, that new Uro that has escape. And yes, I know I just named 3 blue-green commanders, but it is very topical because blue has probably always been considered the best color in Magic by many people, and green has been the best color of 2019. So I picked those 3 for my example, just for those 2 reasons. But essentially, what people are saying is the format's growing. WotC's got their fingers in it. They've monetized it. I'm not here to say, yes, that's great, or no, it's not great. They're a company. They're going to monetize things. They're going to make money. I think people's issue lies in the fact that they are overstepping their bounds because parent company Hasbro is telling them to. Again, I'm not going to get into that. What I am going to get into is a couple ways to make sure that your collection is growing in value as the game expands. Think of it when you build a deck, you're going to build a token deck that's either wide or go tall, right? You're going to have a wide battlefield full of different things, an impenetrable wall, or you're going to have a very tall 1 or 2 creatures that are going to tower over everybody else. The same can be true of your Magic collection. Part of that is contingent on procuring or obtaining expensive cards and keeping them. And people think of the original dual lands as an example of this. Okay, so last year, for example, I bought XYZ dual land, and now this year they are still among the most expensive cards in my collection, and they have accrued, 2% of an increase in value or whatever, right? And people look at them as an investment. And sure, that's a great way to grow your collection because you're buying very usable cards. Maintain your collection's value because you've essentially, let's say you've traded $200 in cash for a $200 Magic card. that will grow 2% year over year. Just numbers, just examples. I'm just throwing those out there, making those numbers up. If you ever have to turn those magic cards back into cash, well, you've made 2% or 4% or what have you on them. Or if, let's say, you want to build a new deck, you can go into the store and say, here, Mr. LGS owner, I have this, whatever it is, this Taga, this Scrubland, Badlands, whatever it is. I want this single for the deck I'm building. And then you have a new deck. So that's a great way to do it. If you already have, that $200 just burning a hole in your pocket. As most of us don't, I would suggest that you still do prioritize lands though. I did this years and years and years and years ago. It was before cons. It was even before Zendikar came out. And I remember when Zendikar, like the original Zendikar came out and the fetch lands were reprinted. And I had it in my mind that they were going to reprint fetch lands because landfall was already spoiled. And I thought, hey, wouldn't that be cool if we got the enemy colored fetch lands that gave you 2 landfall triggers? And wasn't I right? That was so funny. I didn't read it anywhere. I just guessed and I was right and it was great. And because I was prioritizing lands to make myself able to build any deck that I wanted, I found that Magic just became a wide open freeway for me. You know what I mean? I used to play some standard. I played Legacy or whatever, like cards you own .format at whoever's house. Like the point is, I was prioritizing lands, and that made it such that I could play anything provided I had the cards. And over time, card values that go into decks fluctuate typically a lot more than lands do. So if you can, again, prioritize the lands and then take advantage of a very sharp dip or a decline in XYZ card price, pick that card up when it's low. And there's a ton of different websites that you can go to now that track that for you. They've got the little, almost like a stock ticker or a line graph that lets you see the historic price of the card. The one I use is mtgstocks.com, so probably have a link to that in the show notes, or I'll tag them on Twitter because they're very useful. They have a weekly winners that tells you the biggest jumps in prices week by week. So maybe if you have that card, you want to sell it when it's high. And also in the same article, they have a trending downwards or a bottoming out, low as it'll ever go type graph as well to tell you which cards are the cheapest that they've ever been. So great ways. Now that still doesn't solve the problem for players who don't have original duels or even original fetch lands that might be, $30, $50, $70, $90, $100, whatever a Zendikar fetch is now. What I would say to those people is make sure whenever a new set rolls out that has Shocklands in it, like Ravnica just did, or Amonkhet that has the fetchable cycle lands that had 2 different land types. Those are great cards to get. You prioritize getting those. Battle Bond had the Battle Bond if you have 3 or more opponents or 2 or more opponents lands. Get those because when you own a whole bunch of those, you won't have to move them from deck to deck if that's what you want to do. You can build several decks. Or you can keep your commander decks together and still play your other format decks if that's what you want to do. The point is prioritize getting your lands. The second thing I want to talk about, and something that I've got experience in very recently, is go through your collection. I guarantee everybody's got open booster box and bulk boxes this and shopping bags full of that and all of that. Essentially unsorted bulk junk is exactly that. It's just junk. And this is an opportunity for players to convert their time into a valuable collection. And what I mean is you're going to come home from work or it's going to be Sunday night or whatever, and you're going to be sitting doing nothing anyways. Grab your collection just a little bit at a time and start sorting it. Sort all your commons, your uncommons, your rares, sort them into sets. Find out how much of a set you have. Work on collecting an entire set of something, because as soon as you have a full set of whatever it is, Lorwyn, Khans of Tarkir, Battle for Zendikar, all of a sudden, all of those worth nothing commons that you can't even burn for heat because magic cards don't burn that good, all of a sudden, all of the commons that are in that set have a value. Go onto your local Facebook group, go onto Twitter, go onto whatever platform is available to you, And let's say you have a complete playset of all the commons and uncommons in Battle for Zendikar. Sell them for $20. There's a couple battle bond lands, right? It's going to take time, but you're going to be able to convert your time into cash or into other Magic cards if you offer any of those sorted cards as trade fodder. Of course, everything that you don't keep, donate them, take them to thrift stores, make them accessible to other players. Don't just throw them out or recycle them, because somebody will be happy to receive those and to play with them. And in the thread for episode 43, maybe I'll tag a couple of the people that I know accept Magic cards. There's magickids.org. There's listener, friend, patron of the show, Ginger Joe. He plays with youth all the time. I know he accepts cards, so I just wanted to make sure I got that in there as well. Point is here, sorted cards are worth more than unsorted cards, and it just takes time. That's all it takes. I'll give you an example of this. So everybody knows that I do altered art cards, and I am sorting my collection. You know that now. I sort my Visions set about a month ago or whatever, and I have, whatever it is, 25 or 30 copies of Shrieking Drake, right? And those have been sitting in a duffel bag in the bottom of my closet in a shoebox since 1999 when I got the duffel bag that started me into Magic. They've been sitting there forever, so I'm finally sorting it all, and I end up taking to the donation putting in the donation pile all my extra copies of Shrieking Drake, because they're just commons from Visions that I've had for 25 years. Like, see ya, I've got my one for my set, my complete set of Visions. Wouldn't you know, like 2 days later, I get a message, hey, I need an altered art Shrieking Drake. Okay, great, fine. If I have to buy one, I'll just go online to buy one, fusiongamingonline.com. So just to humor myself, I check the price. It's like $3.50. I'm like, what? This common that I literally just got rid of 25 of these are worth that much. And just to humor myself even further, I checked the buy list price. Multiple stores were buying them at $1.25. So I literally just donated like $30 worth of Shrieking Drakes. Perfect example of sorted stuff is worth more. You know, a friend needs something. Hey, do you have this common? Hey, do you have this uncommon? Hey, I'm building this weird jank deck. Do you have this? And then all of a sudden you can whip it out and you get it, right? And this obscure jank uncommon that your friend would have to order and pay shipping on, what have you, is worth to them, the person you're trading it to, it's worth to them an actual card that you're going to play, right? So this $3 Shrieking Drake that this person would have had to order and pay shipping on might be worth $5 to them in trade. So I can get, a battle bond land for them. Again, just as an example, I can get a exotic orchard from them or a City of Brass. And these are lands that are going to make it so I can build whatever deck I want. The final little bit about adding value to your collection is essentially being much more selective about what you're spending your money on. Again, Magic's expensive. It's only going to get more expensive to play Commander because more and more people are being drawn into the format. And for anything that isn't being printed every single Commander set release, like a Sol Ring, for example, is only going to get more expensive. I make a joke. Every single card in a Commander deck now is worth $5. That's why every deck is worth like $500. And you say, oh, well, what about basic lands? And I say, no, well, on average, a card is worth $5 because you got basic lands that are worth nothing. But then you've got, 10 or 15 cards that are worth $20 in your deck. So be more selective, right? Let's say you got 5 or 6 decks at this point. You've prioritized your lands. You've kept your collection sorted as to know what you've got or don't got or need. You got 5 or 6 decks. New set comes out. You go, oh, that card would be good in this deck. That card would be good in this deck. You just go out and buy stuff willy-nilly. Then you never end up actually adding it to decks, right? Instead, try deciding what card needs to come out of a deck prior to purchasing a new card to put into the deck. If you can't find anything to cut for this thing that you think would be good in the deck, well, I guess it's not better than anything that's in there. The other thing is, oh, this card would be good in Commander, and this one, and this one, and this one, and you go out and buy 20 or 30 singles that are just good in Commander, so you want to own them. That is different than just going out and buying 20 or 30 land cards that are good in Commander just because you want to own them. The lands can go anywhere, theoretically, sort of. Random EDH playables can't. So instead of spending, $1 to $2 per card like that, take your $60 and save it in your Magic fund. And then the next set that comes out, do the same thing. Try and find cards to cut prior to spending money on any cards to add. And if you can't do that again, take that $60 again. Now you've got 120, right? You can get a beat up Taiga for that, or you can get a Grim Monolith for that, or you can get a 3 Mana Crypts for that. And then all of a sudden, all your decks, or half your decks, or all your good decks have Mana Crypts in them. Sorry, Mana Vault, not Mana Crypt, Mana Vault. Right? So a Mana Vault is a card that, sure, it costs a little bit more money, but you can then, if you ever need to liquidate it, get rid of it for cash. It still holds some amount of liquidity, and or it also holds some amount of trade value. If you just go out and spend $30 or $60 on random commander playables, in air quotes, those don't have a whole bunch of trade value, because everybody who isn't as smart as you, who's going out and spending money just willy-nilly because they have it, because it's burning a hole in their pocket, because they're immature or irresponsible, they're going to have those same cards. They're not going to have mana vaults like you are, because you're spending your money wisely to add value to your collection. It's very important to do this. So that's my piece on adding value to your collection. I hope it's useful. Please chime in on Twitter. I know I've picked and plucked and borrowed pieces from a bunch of different conversations that I've seen or been a part of over the last month on this. So kind of been thinking about it as I sort my collection, and as Ikoria is coming up and Theros Beyond Death just came out, I didn't spend a whole bunch of money on it, because it's like, oh, what value is it adding? If the answer is none, what cards am I adding to my deck? Well, if the answer is 1, right, you buy 1. You don't buy all 20 of them, you just buy the 1. You save that money for something that is going to add value. Kind of sounds like a rant, but it's true. So we're going to get into Torment just after this. All right, so Torment, interesting set, as the 25th Magic expansion released February 8, 2002. So we're in the 2000s. I guess we've been in the 2000s for a couple weeks now. It's fine. Small set, second set in the Odyssey block. So 143 cards. It was big, little then. 350, 143, 143. That's how it went. Torment was the first set. And I think it's unique among Magic sets, the only set to be very focused on one color. This was the black set. So what does that mean? Well, 143 cards split 5 ways, plus or minus a few basic lands, usually means equal distribution across all 5 colors. In Torment's case, there was 40 black cards, 28 blue, and 28 red, because they're the ally colors to black. And then 21 green and white cards. So green cards, 21, white cards, 21. Combined, that's how many black cards there was, right? So this is a cool set. Of course, it's part of Odyssey block, so it continues along the Flashback and Threshold lines, but they also introduce Madness. And this was in part due to Chainer, the main character. He's a dementia mage, a black mage. Works for the Cabal, and our story is following him, and he summons like nightmares or horrors or whatever, of which there were some in the set. Pretty cool cards. They kind of act like Oblivion Rings that have an enter and leave the battlefield trigger, so we might see 1 or 2 of those in the set retro proper. Big shout out to Legendary Creature Podcast. They have a full backstory video on their YouTube channel for Chainer. I'll either link it in the notes or I'll tag them in the CAD Pop community spotlight, so they'll know to post it in the appropriate channel. So Threshold and Flashback we learned about last week in Odyssey proper. Madness is ability where if you're discarding a card, you discard it to exile and cast it for its madness cost. So it didn't always work like that, which is interesting. You used to cast it like from your graveyard or something, but then that didn't work out when they went back to Madness and Time Spiral. It was a whole thing. You discard it to exile and you declare that you're casting it for its madness cost. So interesting thing with Madness, the way that it works now is you're casting it from exile, and things that say when you cast it from your hand, XYZ triggers, for example, don't actually trigger because you're casting it from exile. Rules lawyers and judges, please get at me if I'm wrong, at CADPopcast on Twitter. Please correct me so everybody knows. But as far as I understand the rule without looking up the actual legal document that is the comp rules, that's how it works. So Torment, interesting, for being a set of 143 cards, there's actually a whole bunch of EDH playables. So let's take a look at some of them. We've got a Cycle of Tainted Lands. These were the 5 non-basics in the whole set, and they are, correction, there's only 4 of them because we can't be black and black. So how it works is anything that has the word tainted in front of it adds a colorless mana to your mana pool, for example. But if you control a swamp, it'll give you some extra benefit. In these lands case, a different color of mana. So Tainted Field, for example, taps for a colorless. If you control a swamp, it'll tap for a black or a white. Tainted Isle is black or blue. Peak is black or red. And of course, Wood is black or green. So you have to control a swamp, but once you do, these are functionally dual lands that you can't fetch. So you can prioritize these when you're trying to add value to your collection, like I talked about in the community section. Of course, a couple of them have been reprinted in Commander decks throughout the years, and they were uncommon originally in Torment, so they don't hold a huge price. If you want the foils, I think a couple of them are actually expensive though. So I'm not going to say they're not expensive for foils, but they are obtainable. The next cycle that had playable cards in it, the Dream Cycle. So these were instants and sorceries that when you cast them as an additional cost, you discard a certain number of cards, and the effect grows with the number of cards you discard. So we're definitely going to take a look at those in the proper set retro. There was some Disorder Enchantments. That's what the cycle is kind of called now. And one of each color, of course, Pyromania, Narcissism, Compulsion, Hypochondria, Mortophobia. So they are color and 1, discard a card, get a benefit. Color and 1, sacrifice the enchantment and get another benefit. And the benefits, of course, were relevant to the color type that the enchantment was. So let's take a look at a few legendary creatures. There's 5 in this set, and we've got a couple good ones here, a couple really good ones. The first one, Ambassador Laquatas. I don't think this is the first good one, but he is a game-winning card if you have infinite mana. Sure. So he's a 1/3 for blue, 1. You could pay 3. Target player puts the top 3 cards of their library into their graveyard. Of course, you can mill an opponent. Of course, you can mill yourself. Like in Commander, either of those things can win you the game. You know, you mill your opponent, you say go, they try and draw, they can't. Or you mill us, we reanimate everything or get a Lab Maniac back or what have you and win the game that way. There's Belthorn the Scout. This is the original incarnation of the character Belthorn. We'll see his reincarnation next week in Judgment. So this one is a 2/2 for red, 1. He's a dwarf barbarian. I don't know if that matters, but other barbarians get +1/+1, or you can pay red. Target barbarian gets +1/+0 until end of turn. So he fire breathes your tribal barbarian team. I don't know if that's any good, but let's look at an actual good one. This is Chainer Dementia Master. 3/3 human minion for black 3. Nightmare creatures get +1/+1. And that is all nightmare creatures, if your opponent happens to have any. And his real ability is black. Pay 3 life. Put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. That creature is now black and a nightmare in addition to its other types. When Chainer leaves the battlefield, exile all nightmares. So it's cool that he exiles when he dies because then they don't get their thing back into their graveyard if that matters to them. But he buffs the creature that he reanimates, and you can pay 3 life, black, and just keep doing that. So this is a powerful reanimation card. This is a powerful combo card. This guy he's good. Next one, Lawan Cephalid Empress. So this is a 2/3 Cephalid Noble, recently errated with Throne of Eldraine. This is a noble now for blue 3, and when Lawan's Cephalid Empress enters the battlefield, return all blue creatures your opponents control to their owner's hand, and your opponents can't cast blue creatures. Okay, you just make everything blue, right? Sway of Illusion or what have you, Painter's Servant to make everything blue, then your opponents can't cast anything. Of course, that's the trick there. Good control card, because there are other people playing blue frequently in your commander pods. Just look around. The last one, Major Tarot. This is a bird soldier for white 3. It's a 2/3. You pay white 3, sacrifice it, and you exile all black creatures. And it flies. I don't know if I said that. So it's a exile all black creature sweeper. Okay, fine. It's probably fine. Bird tribal, it's good. Same thing like Lawan, Cephalid Empress. If there's a lot of black running around your pods, which there usually is because it's regarded as one of the best colors in Commander, it's going to be a good card. Moving on to the set proper, we've got first one that I really like here, Cleansing Meditation. Sorcery for white 1, destroy all enchantments. If you have threshold though, so that means 7 or more cards in your graveyard, instead destroy all enchantments, then return to the battlefield all cards put into our graveyard this way. So this is cool because we get to keep all our enchantments. That's one thing that's good about it. The other thing is they're all destroyed, then they all enter the battlefield again. So if you're playing, enchantresses that trigger on ETB or constellation stuff that triggers on enchantments entering, not casting. If you are playing the new Omen cycle from Theros Beyond Death, those all scry you or whatever when they enter the battlefield, or they all do something when they enter the battlefield, right? So I've got another white one that reads more like a red one than anything. This is an instant for white 1. It's called Equal Treatment. If any source would deal 1 or more damage to a permanent or player this turn, it deals 2 damage to that permanent or player instead. Draw a card. So cool, it replaces itself already. Now this is interesting because let's say somebody casts a fireball and they're targeting my head for 50. Well, it's dealing 1 or more damage to me. Now, it's going to deal 2 instead of 50. Cool. Okay, let's say I have a Pyrohemia. I can pay a red into it to deal 1 damage to each creature and player. Now, all of a sudden, my Pyrohemia is dealing 1 damage, but Equal Treatment says it's dealing 2. So it doubles the amount of damage if I can deal it 1 at a time. So very interesting card because it can kind of go both ways. You can kind of use it as a fog, you can kind of use it as a counter spell for X burn spells, or you can use it as a damage doubler. Next one, this is a sorcery for white 1 called Morning Tide, which is kind of cool because there's a set later on in Magic's history called Morning Tide. Has nothing to do with that, but what Morning Tide does do is remove all cards in all graveyards from the game. Now, you can get that effect on lands, you can get it on enchantments, you can get it elsewhere. That is the point, but if you do want a spell that does this, maybe to find with, a mystical tutor or whatever, if you want that effect on a spell, Morning Tide is it. We've got an interesting one here. Last white card, Transcendence. I remember trying to break this in the old casual 60 and 4 days. So white 3, enchantment. You don't lose the game for having 0 or less life. Okay. If you have 20 or more life, you do lose the game. So don't cast this as soon as you can in Commander because you'll just die. When you lose life, you gain 2 life for each 1 life you lost. So it kind of topsy-turvies the whole game for you if you're at less than 20 life, right? Like go down to 1 and then deal damage to yourself to gain a bunch of life and then sacrifice this and you can go down again, then you get it back from your graveyard, you go up again. You can stay alive for a long time with this card if you have ways to get it in and out of your graveyard. Now, when I was reviewing all of the blue cards from Torment, I'm scrolling through all the blue cards and I'm like, wow, every card in here is just, it's so weird and so breakable and so just weird. Like Reality Alter. Change the text of target permanent or spell by replacing all instances of one color word with another. That's an instant. It's got flashback. Both costs are blue 1. This is a reprint of a card called Magical Hack, I think, and is in the Hack Ball CEDH deck. It uses, I think, Momor Vig, and you hack Momor Vig. So both of his triggered abilities trigger on green creatures, so you can draw through your whole deck and cast all your elves. cool. It's Elf Ball, it's Magical Hack, it's Hack Ball, get it? This is another card that does it. There's Aqua Amoeba, you discard a card to switch its power and toughness. You can discard your whole hand to it. You've got Breakthrough, draw 4 cards, then choose X cards from your hand and discard the rest from it. So you could just pay a blue, draw 4 cards, and then discard all but 0 cards. You could just discard your whole deck to this, or your whole hand to this. Cephalid Illusionist, this was a huge combo card. You target it with, I think, a Nomads Encore that you just pay 0 and target a thing. And whenever you target Cephalid Illusionist, you put the top 3 cards of your library into your graveyard. You can mill your whole deck, and then you get a bunch of cards back that it's a whole thing. Cephalid Breakfast combo. There it is. There's another one, Deep Analysis. This is blue 3 sorcery. Target player draws 2 cards. Okay. It's got Flashback. Blue 1, pay 3 life. So essentially in Commander, we don't care about that 3 life. What we care about is blue 1, draw 2 cards. That's actually really good. We've got another one that I really like. We've talked about this on Commander Cookout before. This is Retraced Image. It's a sorcery for just blue. Reveal a card in your hand, then put that card onto the battlefield if it has the same name as another permanent in play. What this is Retraced Image, reveal an island, put another island into the battlefield. Or in your token deck, if you somehow, bounce a creature when you have a clone of that creature on the battlefield, for example, lets you cheat in an expensive creature. Or if you clone somebody else's, and then you can, it's a whole thing. But mostly it's played for lands. So original printing for Cabal Ritual was in Torment. We're into black now, and this is the first instance of black's dominance in not only the standard environment, the extended environment, the commander environment. This black in this set is where it's at. So Cabal Ritual is an instant for black 1. You can add black to your mana pool. That is a ritual. You spend some amount of mana, you get more mana out of it at the cost of a card. But wait. Threshold, instead, you add black to your mana pool. So people went nuts over this card because as soon as you have cards in your graveyard, it gives you 5 mana for 2 mana. This still sees play in Legacy. This is a great card. I've played it in combo decks in the past. They don't have any that are currently playing this. Chainer's Edict. If you're into Edict effects, they're usually 2 mana spells that make target player sacrifice a creature, or each player sacrifice a creature. That's what Chainer's Edict does. Target player sacks a creature, but it's also Flashback for black 5. So that's cool. It's probably been outclassed, but that's fine. Okay, here's one of them nightmare horror things. So this is Faceless Butcher. Black 2. When it enters the battlefield, remove target creature from the game. When it leaves the battlefield, return that creature to the battlefield. So it's worded just like Oblivion Ring. Because of that, if you bounce it before its enter the battlefield ability resolves, you put its leave the battlefield ability on top of that on the stack. Then you resolve the leaves the battlefield ability that says return the exiled creature to the battlefield. It'll try and do that, but there's no creature to return. So when the exile that creature ability resolves, Faceless Butcher's first ability, resolves, it'll just exile the creature and it'll be gone forever. And there are ways to just, sacrifice or bounce at instant speed, especially in black, the sacrifice part, and the creature's just gone forever. You can just chainer it back onto the battlefield at the cost of 3 life. Super cool. It's really good. Get this. I wish that this was a legendary creature. Wizards of the Coast, if anybody's listening, this is the kind of stuff we need right here. Hypnox. Make him legendary. He's an 8/8 for black 8. Nightmare Horror, flying. When he enters the battlefield, if you played it from your hand, remove all cards in target opponent's hand from the game. Oh, good. When Hypnox leaves the battlefield, return all those cards that were exiled to that player's hand. So just dust somebody's whole hand, and then they get it all back when they kill your 8/8, which is going to happen, right? Because it's an 8/8 flyer. It's going to have to die. But I just thought it was cool. Icarid was originally printed in Torment. I'm just going to leave that there for the Legacy Dredge players. Insidious Dreams. This is our first Dreams card. And black got 2. Everybody else got 1. So this is an instant for black 3. As an additional cost, when you cast it, discard X cards, and then you search for X cards where X is the number of cards you discarded. So if you've got this and a couple other cards in your hand, you just discard them all, and then you can just refill your hand with exactly what you want it to tutor for. This is a mighty card because it's an instant. This card's very good. Mesmeric Fiend is the next one. It works just like Faceless Butcher, except you are taking a card from an opponent's hand. Mind Sludge was a huge standard player. Target player discards a card from their hand for each swamp you control. So if you just want to get rid of somebody's whole hand, just jam Mind Sludge and you can get them. Mutilate, original printing in Torment. Black, 2 sorcery. All creatures get -1/-1 for each swamp you control. So again, they're leaning into that black set theme, right? Rancid Earth, destroy target land. If you have Threshold, instead destroy a land, and each creature and each player loses a life. That's great. I was actually wrong. I think black got 3 of the dreams. There's Restless Dreams. There's additional cost you pay, or you discard X cards, you get X creatures from your graveyard to your hand, and that costs just black. So if you're running Raise Dead, maybe run this instead. I don't know. But this is the real one. This is the other good one. Sickening Dreams. This is a kill spell in lands decks all over the place, or other ad nauseum decks or what have you. So this is black 1 sorcery is an additional cost. Discard X cards, okay. Sickening Dreams deals X damage to each creature and each player. So what you do, or what I do with it, what I've seen done with it, is you ad nauseum, revealing cards from the top of your library, and you lose life equal to all of those cards' converted mana costs. If you're like me and have a deck with 65 land in it, you hardly lose any life. You just reveal until you hit Sickening Dreams and Glacial Chasm, which says prevent all damage. Play the Glacial Chasm, discard all the lands you drew with your ad nauseum into Sickening Dreams, and just dome everybody for like 50. So that's a really cool card. Devastating Dreams was the red one, and that was each player sacrifices lands. Grim Lavamancer was originally in Torment. I'll leave that there for the legacy players. Radiate, which is the instant that Zadahedron Grinder's ability is based on. So it's an instant for red 3. Choose target instant or sorcery spell that targets only a single permanent or player. For each other permanent or player that spell could target, put a copy of that spell onto the stack. Each of those targets a different permanent or player instead. So that's a cool one. They built a whole commander, and I have a whole CEDH deck that's based on that. So just going through green quickly, I have played Krosan Restorer in my day. Right now it's in a Enchantress deck that runs all of the enchant lands that give you extra mana, my Estrid deck. So this is a 1/2 Druid for green 2. You untap target land when you tap it, or if you have Threshold, you tap it to untap up to 3 target lands. So if each one of my lands that I tap gives me 2 or 3 mana, and I untap 3 of them, this can generally net me, 5, 6, 9, 10 extra mana. So that's pretty cool. Parallel Evolution. This is a token card that generally gets passed over because it doesn't say Sapperling on it, or Soldier, or Goblin on it. But essentially, green 3. For each creature token on the battlefield, its controller puts a creature token that's a copy of that creature onto the battlefield. And then it's got Flashback for green 4. So essentially you double all of your tokens. Other players will get incidental tokens if they have any, sure, but we double ours, and then we can double them again by paying 7. Nostalgic Dreams is the green dreams, green, discard X cards, then you can get X cards back from your graveyard, then you exile Nostalgic Dreams. So that was the last dreams, the last of the cycle. Moving on to the lands, I mentioned the 4 tainted lands, and I actually forgot there was a black land. You might know it as Cabal Coffers. Yep, originally printed in Torment. It was given an F&M promo after that. It was in Plane Chase, like the original Plane Chase, and that's it. And that is a hefty price tag attached to that card because Commander. The Torment one's about $50, the Plane Chase one's about $55, and then the Friday Night Magic foil promo from 2007, it's about $75 for an uncommon land that was from what we now call the black set. So that was Torment. I hope everybody liked it as much as I liked it, both playing it, reviewing it, and then talking about it today. If you've got any of your own Torment hidden gems, please let me know at CADPopcast on Twitter, Commander Ad Populum on Facebook. I do threads for each episode in case anybody wants to comment. Of course, if you're in the Commander Ad Populum Discord, thank you for the Patreon support. Thank you for the engagement, the interaction, the ideas, the support in more ways than you know, really. If that sounds like something you want to be a part of, or you want to take advantage of any of the other Patreon benefits, patreon.com/CADPopcast. I'd very much appreciate it. Can't make the show without you guys. If Patreon isn't right for you at this time, please just share the show, tell a friend, start a conversation up at your LGS or wherever you play Magic, and let me know about that conversation, because I'd like to talk about if it's interesting or it helps the community in some way. I'd like to cover it. Finally, huge thank you to official sponsors FusionGamingOnline.com. They are there for all of your Torment needs. Very much appreciate working with those guys. And of course, you can check out all of Fusion's sponsored content on themanabase.com. That's it, everybody. We'll continue on our Odyssey of Odyssey block next week. I'll see you next Wednesday.